Back in the late 50s, I flew down to London with the British European Airways for an interview with the BBC. Now, a lot has changed since then. The plane was in their pioneer fleet. You might recognise it from the old war films as a Dakota, the plane that paratroopers jumped out of. It being a tail dragger, as a passenger you boarded at the back and walked uphill to your seat. There was no in-flight announcements, and a bit of paper from the captain was passed back, giving you the estimated time of arrival and the weather at your destination. Spool forward now to the 1980s, when travel agents could sell a package holiday to the Greek islands, and travel programs became the in thing both on television and radio. And a day's work for someone like me could involve asking holidaymakers their views. Eager holiday companies took groups of radio and print journalists to capture the dream and to sell the product. Sometimes there were too many of them, but mostly the balance was right, and here I could take my pick of the grape pickers in Burgundy. They were French Canadians. With radio, sound effects, be it footsteps on cobbles or the lapping of the sea, could be added later to heighten the listener's experience. Equipment became portable, and as quality improved, recordings for entire trips could be made on cassette recorders about the size of a Sony Walkman. This little reel-to-reel recorder could only tape about 5 minutes at a time, but in the early 1960s, interviews I made with it helped me gain a job as a producer. Much later, this little bit of high-tech had been to the top of Mount Everest before it percolated down to me. It's a Mini Niagara, and I think it was worth about £2,000. It was perfect for travel, it impressed me, but I'm not quite sure about this fella I tried to record. I met the giant tortoise on a press trip to the Seychelles. It's a beautiful place in the middle of the Indian Ocean. It's about 1,000 miles from anywhere, but it's about as close to paradise as you're likely to get on any holiday. There are 68 palm-fringed beaches on the main island, and colourful birds flit through the trees. It's the sort of place where butterflies might land on your fingers. And this one is made out of paper. It just happened to fly out of my pocket. Of course, rather than escape the winter, you can embrace it. And there would be no better place to do that than the Winter Festival in Quebec, where, of course, it's French-speaking.
À Québec, ça commence royalement par le grand et joyeux déploiement des tambours, des trompettes, des brillants que l'on voit dans les vrais couronnements. Carnaval, Mardi Gras, Carnaval.
International artists fill a park with ice carvings and sparkling ice sculptures lit at night by thousands of little LEDs. And there are sporting events that include a canoe race over the frozen St. Lawrence. Now, when we heard about this, we took the car ferry over to Lewis to experience the sound and the feel of the great slabs of frozen ice slamming against the side of the ship. It helped give an idea of just how tough the ordeal would be. Other exciting things you can do include renting a snowmobile. Watch out, there's a moose loose about the house. Members of the press party are usually happy to model for each other. This journalist was from the States. You can also take a dog sled ride, and they usually go very fast and are difficult to photograph. It's worth mentioning the smell. They tend to poo on the go at 35 miles an hour, and if you're driving, you get the fragrance. These pictures were on 35mm slide film, back in the days before Photoshop was on hand, and what you saw was what you got. And in this case, what you got was an earless dog. Nowadays, of course, you can scan it, copy the good ear, mirror it, and paste it in. It's not cheating. The dog had an ear. You just couldn't see it. As far as travel features go, you don't always have to travel far. Your local backyard could be a distant reader's adventure. Of course, the computer can show you a truth that isn't obvious in the picture. Let's look at some legitimate fixes and take a train ride in the Pyrenees. The train went up into the mountains and there were views of griffon vultures. The picture made an attention-grabbing travel page. You could see them quite clearly. But getting them and the interior of the train into the picture wasn't quite so easy. Combine the two with Photoshop and you have a report that captures the experience. Wind back the years to when you sent prints to the paper. Some could be rescued by being marked up for crude cropping, and when it was transparency, well, there's little point in offering a washed out one like this. With Photoshop you can scan it and boost the colour. More lately, a lady catches a train. Lady there, but no train. The train arrives, met by porter. Combine the lot and you have wrangled a shot that you would have had to be lucky to get. Now from wrangling to wranglers, the wranglers that handle horses in Texas. This sunset shot leaves a bit of room for improvement. You can't see his eyes. Dab a couple of white pixels in with the paintbrush tool and you have it. He almost looks menacing. And so too Tunisia. A place to escape for a bit of gentle winter warmth. Even so, the locals were well wrapped up. An appropriate and willing model could not be found, so a picture on a tin tray in the market was used for the feature. These particular ladies might have been willing to pose had they not been just a couple of reporters fooling about in a shop. Some vigorous belly dancing could be included in the entertainment for the tourist, or a visit to the local museum for exotic costume and intricate hand painting. I liked the side trip into the desert. It provided a bit of colour for the feature. The drive took a long time and we eventually reached an oasis, and the accommodation was not in a tent, but what looked like a Beaugest-style fort. And inside, a swimming pool. All the trimmings of tourism. At every opportunity I try to make friends and collect faces for the features. Here are some. This on the top deck of a wonderful Swiss train. Two lovely people in Catalonia near the Spanish border. Youngsters in a wine and flower fight that proved to be quite a close encounter. I used a wide-angle lens. My guide in Jamaica. The guy who made buttons from oyster shells. A welcome at festival time in the Canaries. A couple and a street party that we heard about on local radio in St. Paul's, Minnesota. At a fisherman's festival in Saint Malo in France. And a fellow travel writer researching the Guinness and cork. That friendly shopkeeper in Tunisia. And, well, we hadn't met him yet. It takes over 9 hours to fly out to Vancouver, and when you get there, does your journalist host let you go to bed? No, it's free drinks at a vodka tasting and another photo opportunity. And the next day it's down to the sea to talk your way onto a fishing boat, where Regan Ritchie poses with a £25 tuna. So we cut our images and the paper sub-editor does his job and makes an eye-catching layout on the travel page. Back home we are visited by Sandra, a travel agent from Arnhem in Holland. She's pictured here in front of a poster of the Kremlin, wearing a souvenir hat I brought back from Budapest. No comment. The camera never lies. And now to flags. A flag on a page can instantly set the location before a word has been read. In this case, it's the United States and Boston. The Union Jack at Windsor Castle. The crowds leaving you in no doubt about the value of the monarchy in attracting tourism. A chance photo when the QE2 visited Scotland. I noticed the flag on the back of the launch on the way out to the ship and was ready to line it up on the way back. It was a 2-hour visit for local journalists, no doubt in the hope of getting some publicity without providing a cruise. And now a regional flag. Any idea where? No, it's not Northumberland. It's from sunnier climes in Catalan, down on the Med twixt France and Spain. I have others, but it's the Stars and Stripes that dominates the collection. Now, this is not a negative of the Union Jack, but a flag of the Basque region, which is where I took that train up into the mountains. Now, this is not much of a photograph, but however is ideal for putting a title on a website page. And here it is. And while in the Basque region I bought some cheese and persuaded the farmer to pose in his berry, and the berry of course is a bit of an icon. Icons of course can be a kind of shorthand for a country. Like this one of the Little Mermaid, it can place you instantly in Denmark. Now she's small, distant and not the easiest thing to photograph. I struck lucky with this couple who were too occupied to notice me. If you take a picture there, watch out for the industrial complex in the background. You might need to crop or Photoshop. Goodness only knows the gods smile on you, and if you make the effort to explore, you can be rewarded with scenes that seem to turn the clock back, views that feed your soul before you take the plane back home.